I think it's.
Do you know how to do it?
Yeah, it should be telling you that I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's,
shows
Oh,
that it has
okay.
started.
Big Brother is on.
You're on.
Well, look, Patrick, Joe, Podno has joined. He is a colleague of Rehani's been doing the research at the. Let me get. It is a Centre for Digital Built Britain, isn't it? And so, as they're going to present two sort of case studies. I don't know who's going to go first. Whether you've drawn lots.
I will.
Okay, you're going to go first. Okay. So I believe your one is the systems integrator role in delivering building projects using digital technologies and offsite manufacturing.
Yes.
And the case study is a school building extension undertaken by Net Zero Building.
Yes.
And then Rehani, you're doing the barriers to BIM implementation at the organizational level, as well as sort of coordination and collaboration challenges that contractors face when working with architectural firms. And that's sort of based on interviews you've had with, I think, Swan, Wilmot Dixon, Kier, Multiplex, Skanska, and ISG. So, yeah, really looking forward to them, actually. I think these will be really good sessions. And I guess from here, as was one of the things when I was in the MMC meeting last week, is for us, I guess, all to keep in mind, because this is the design working group, what is it that we can learn, I guess, as designers? What have been the benefits? I guess a bit like what George was saying. What are the benefits of the things that you found in your case studies for designers? What are the challenges that are still out there? And I think also more importantly, as well, because we've got the other working groups, if there were things that you found in your research or your interviews, which we need other sectors, let's say, of the industry to change or clarify or address, I think they're the kind of things, bullet points that we want to draw out. So I'll try and make some notes myself, but if everyone could, based on the presentations, come up with things that they think about, that'd be really good to then address and put forward to the other working groups, if that makes sense. Cool. Well, no, I'll leave it to it if you want to take the team's platform.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I will brief. I have only about 3 relevant slides. Just that.
We've got an hour, by the way, in total, so you don't have to rush anything.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's see. Share. Yes. Okay. I hope everyone can see.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good photo, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with that. I'm trying to start the. Yeah. I'm wondering, is it still showing? Sorry.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the systems integrator role in delivering building projects using digital technologies and offsite manufacturing. The background to this is, well, this is a very short summary from a paper that has been submitted, is currently under review in one of the construction management journals. And the background to this is that in majority of the industry efforts around the uptake of offsite manufacturing, in particular under the umbrella of MMCs and digital technologies, there has been a lot of focus on the technologies that supports these approaches, and there is a lot of effort also directed at what needs to be adopted more and more, which approaches need to be, which approaches need attention. And what we identify is that there is very little focus on exactly what construction firms should do, or how they can, or what they need to do in adopting these technologies. And I understand this can be looked at from very different angles, but the focus of this work was to try and answer the question of what construction firms need to do in implementing a digital technology, particularly BIM, and offsite manufacturing. BIM because that is what is under the current mandate. There is a current mandate for that, and also offsite manufacturing because the recent government position shows that there is going to be some sort of presumption in favor for its use, and so these that sort of underpins why we focus on BIM and offsite manufacturing in particular. And we conducted a case study, a qualitative case study in net zero buildings. They are specialists design and build construction firm that has an in-house design team and construction team as well. And their main goal is to deliver buildings that have net zero carbon emissions or very minimal carbon emissions over their lifespan, with a lot of focus on energy consumption. And so we adopted through a qualitative inquiry. We engaged with 9 participants, and we spoke to them at length. And they had varying ranges of experience in terms of construction project delivery. I think they averaged about 12 years across the 9 of them. The focus was to investigate exactly how a design build general contracting firm used offsite manufacturing as the construction approach and used digital technology like BIM. It was on a project, on a 2-story multi-purpose school extension project for a client which was an academic trust in northern England. I think I am not at liberty at the moment to provide extensive details, but the key details are here. That it's a 2-story building. It had 2,200 square meters of gross floor area, and it was it had 8 classrooms. The details are as shown on the slide. So it's a multi-purpose building extension project. But the interesting thing is that all the 152 wall units of this structure were made off-site and designed for manufacture and assembly right from the start. And that's where the off-site component is. And the other interesting thing is that all the plant rooms were designed and manufactured off-site and installed in place on the building site. And that was sort of the central marker from where all the other parts of the building was connected, because the plant rooms had several connections coming in there, and so they needed to locate that first on site before they could do anything. And so they spent considerable amount of time actually designing the plant room and its connections. The same was with the toilets. They had the modules made off-site and then fixed in place on the site, on the building site. And going through the interviews with them and also looking at the project documentation, what became evident was that majority of the design and offsite, majority of the functions related to ensuring that the client's needs, regulatory constraints, and making sure that the design and the design of all the components were according to professional standards. It revolved mainly around the lead architects. There were 2 architects involved on this project, and I suppose that speaks more to this working group, which is a design working group. The lead architect there were 2 architects, and every majority of the decisions revolved around the lead one. Not necessarily because of the person being in the position of a lead, but mainly because through the conversations with the project team, it was evident that majority of them deferred to her based on the central role she played in ensuring that the designs were up to standard, were according to the internal standard outlines, and then she also ensured that she had a clear understanding of the project client's requirements, as well as how to ensure that everything worked, were following the laid down standards for the profession. There was a lot of mention to mention of the RIBA standard of works, which were adapted to suit their project, which essentially started off right in a digital environment. So all their designs, to begin with, everything about their designs were done in using digital technology. So they started off right off with modeling the idea and presenting these concepts to the client from the beginning in using these digital tools at a point in time. So they go through, before they agree on the final design with the client, they go through about 3 stages. Yeah, they go through 3 stages where they present the initial idea as expressed by the client in the form of a model, and by visualizing the design to the client, they have a greater appreciation of what they want them to do. And it is the same lead architect who ensured that certain transportation limitations were adhered to right from the design stage, in order that they wouldn't have any transportation problems or even incur additional transportation costs, because there were some in the full paper. We outlined the details of the transportation limitations. They actually have developed a standard that they follow internally, against which all their designs are pegged, so that they know that all the components, particularly the 152 wall units, are designed such that they can be carried on stillages after they've been manufactured and placed on the backs of lorries to be transported to the site, without the need for additional escort, without the need for any escort, or without the need to put in special arrangements with the councils in order to move the lorries and have these these components installed on site. So right from the very beginning, there is a thread that runs through the design and then the manufacturing bit, that come from the knowledge, a deeply rooted understanding of what the client wants, and a deep understanding of the regulatory and contextual limitations within which they operate, as well as professional practice guidelines. And by pulling all of these together, the project team, again led by the lead architect, was then able to recruit specific subcontractors, specialist MEPs, and component manufacturers. There is an issue, however, with the recruitment of the specialist MEP and structural consultants. They have a specialist MEP consultant that they work with at Net Zero from project to project. And so at every point in time, they wish to have the leeway to appoint their own structural and MEP consultants. On this particular project, the client nominated a structural consultant. Initially they nominated both the MEP and the structural consultant, but at the end of the day, the lead architect, in conjunction with the company CE, approached the client and made the case why based on the way they work, one, in a digital environment, and two, their default being to use offsite manufacturing, they really needed someone they have that working relationship with, and also someone they have the shared understanding of working platforms, and also design software with, in order to facilitate collaboration and easy communication. But as this project data would have it, they were only successful in just keeping their own MEP consultant, and they had to work with a structural consultant. That had its issues with respect to software interoperability, but then the project team were able to have a discussion with the structural consultant. And at the end of the day, what happened was that point the BIM manager had to take on the role of making sure that all the structural designs that came into them were reformatted into one that could integrate with their system. They worked using ArchiCAD and CostX for the costing, and also ArchiCAD for the designs. Similar platform or design related issues were encountered in dealing with the subcontractor for on-site works. The expectation is that this subcontractor would be in constant communication with the structural consultant, but again, because the structural consultant was working in a different sort of digital environment, let me put it that way, the subcontractor could not be bothered to also take on what they were using in order to adhere to what the lead architect required from them. At the end of the day, they had to actually have a conversation with the subcontractor to ensure that everything that they needed, they came to them, that is Net Zero, in order to make sure that whatever communication between them and the structural consultants were regulated through the Net Zero project team. Fewer problems were experienced with the component manufacturer, because Net Zero themselves have a factory, and that is where they produced all these components. But however, although they didn't have any sort of design related issues, one challenge they faced was that if they had, because of the manufacturing mentality in the factory, anytime there was some sort of a design, if there was something they could not interpret clearly or readily, they had to defer to the project team at Net Zero, the project design team at Net Zero, in order to make sure everything was clear. But that also had implications for how fast they could complete their designs, how fast they could complete the manufacturing processes for some of the components, because to switch from manufacturing one component to another took some time, because they had to then recalibrate the machines, and also change certain the positions of some of the machines in order to get the alignments correct, and also the positions of specific holes and joints correctly. So looking at the data and also what's happened on the project, we looked at it through this model that was developed from the aerospace industry. It was developed around the idea of looking at what goes into the successful, how does the aerospace industry work from the manufacturing of a plane through to the provision of services, all centered around the single unit of an airplane, which comprises several different parts, and relating that thinking to the delivery of a building project, which comprises multiple components. Even if you break it down to into modules, if I should conceptualize it that way. If you break it down to the minutest module, and you consider every part of a building as a module, they still make up different parts that need to be put together. But we realize that the design and manufacturing and on-site installation phases of delivering projects, even using digital technologies and off-site manufacturing, still require it requires the pulling together of different client needs, regulatory requirements, professional standards, and even creating a network of suppliers who will be able to meet these needs, these multifaceted needs. And looking at this project, it draws attention to the fact that there is the data from the project shows that the idea of systems integration is critical for the successful deployment of offsite manufacturing using digital technologies. This is mainly because it requires the pulling together of several different components and needs a specific understanding by a professional in order to pull all these together and make sure they are in the right, they are connected well in order for a project to be delivered successfully. So in reflecting on the findings that this case study provides, it points us to some things, some insights that have implications for what construction firms could be doing and how policy efforts could be reoriented. We realize that it's not, when we look at the majority of the government-led efforts and all the industry narratives around the use of offsite, the use of digital technologies, it's almost as if everything is going to be way simple than conventional construction methods. But then the evidence from this case, there are complexities that still remain, and these complexities relate with early stage design finalization and the need for strong integration and collaboration. The working culture as we have it in the industry is yet to make that transition from working in pockets or working in silos towards the strong integration needs that come with the use of offsite manufacturing and digital technologies. Issues like interoperability are still yet to be sorted out because professions tend to be glued to specific technologies that they are used to and not want to move out of their comfort zone, if I should put it that way. And that emphasizes the issue that these complexities need to be tackled. And we draw attention to the concept of systems integration in order to demonstrate that if we want to really ensure that at the unit, well, at the cell level of the industry, that is in every construction firm or in every, in this case, a general contracting firm, if they are going to be able to make the shift from conventional ways of working to the use of modern innovations in the delivery of projects, then we need to give some thought to the idea of systems integration and even the role of a systems integrator, because no matter how we put it, there are still the three top components apply to almost every project, and the bottom components, that is, so then the needs bit and the bottom, that is the creation of the supplier network, and a capable supplier network is applicable to every kind of project at any kind of scale. And so if we have if construction firms are able to, or even the industry should pay attention to the development of professional capabilities along this line of systems integration thinking, and not encouraging this silo kind of professional development, then we could be making progress towards the realization of these all the visions that have been espoused in industry transformation, in the industry transformation agenda. Because without these, if we don't have these ways of thinking planted into professions and how construction firms will work, then we will begin to we are going to still face challenges of integration, collaboration, which have been discussed for the past 3 decades as problems in the construction industry. So that essentially summarizes the research that I would like to talk about concerning the systems integrator role in delivering building projects. In summary, at any level or in whichever way we look at project delivery using offsite manufacturing and digital technologies, there ought to be that attention given to how to pull all these multifaceted elements together in an effective way to ensure that they talk around the use of offsites and MMCs in general can lead to the desired benefits from project to project and from firm to firm. Thank you.
Oh no, that's really interesting. Thank you very much. I guess there's probably some questions that everyone has, but I'm wondering if we maybe listen to Rehane's and then look at how much time we have left. But I know some of the things maybe quite know well. I think some initial queries that I had would be useful to know is if there's an academy trust. I think you mentioned the need for obviously early client decisions, etc. And some of the things that we've been discussing is the inability of some clients to define procurement routes or construction methods early in the process. And I think obviously it'd be interesting to know whether that was different here in terms of they were very definite about how they wanted the project to be delivered, or was that led by Net Zero, for example? So that's quite an interesting thing. And also interesting about and also interested in the different types of MMC systems that were used, or was it just? I think from what you were saying, it says there are SIPS panels, but it did sound like there was obviously M&E components as well. So maybe a bit of a list of the different types of components that were used. And I think the idea of interoperability in a software point of view is clearly a thing that we've also been discussing. Standardization of nomenclature, etc., which I know we're also kind of aware of. So it was quite interesting. I guess I just had a quick look at the Net Zero building website, because they are in-house design, construction, M&E, etc. That is clearly something which brings great amount of benefit in this sort of turnkey kind of approach. And finally, I'd be quite interested to know the kind of the metrics that you were doing in terms of the aerospace industry to get to kind of those, what were they doing? What are they doing differently that we could learn from as designers? So is the idea of this this role of the systems integrator something that you see the designer taking on board, so that the role of the architect may be changing or could change to something else in a similar way that we are, seem to be best placed to look at the principal designer role from the CDM as well. So maybe it's about expanding our designers' roles. But I'll leave a couple of questions, but maybe Rehane, if you could ask them and just open it up to the table, whatever the virtual team is afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Godwill. I am sharing them my and is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay, this one. I don't know if it's in a presentation mood or not.
It is now.
Okay,
It is now.
great. Yeah, then as I told you before, I was interviewing and working with 6 different companies, and I had more interviews with the BIM expert in CDBB and the other BIM experts or practitioners. Then most of the material that I found is based on the contractors. And I tried for this session, to extract some barriers that is related to the architectural firms as well. And as I promised, I was, I was about to talk about the specific case from each of these contractors, general contractors or big firms. But I was thinking that before I provide these documents and go to the detail of each project, it's better to talk about the organizational level, that what's the barrier in the organizational level, and some of the works that it's better to be done in organizational level, and then later I go to the detail for each of these, for different case study from these firms. And then after that, I want to talk about this barriers to BIM implementation, and then I go to talk about the SWAN case study that they raised some issues in working with the architecture and consultancies firms. What I try to do that during the interviews, I found some of the barriers to adopt BIM, but I was thinking to use the theoretical framework to categorize it, to find out the roots, and also find out which of these barriers related to which part of the BIM adoption process and part of the journey, the transformation journey. And this diagram are more, has more factors, but I deleted some factors that related to the contractors or subcontractors firms, and keep the one that I was thinking that can be in common with the architectural firm as well. The thing is that when the barriers when we talk about adopting BIM in the architectural firms, there are some barriers we face, but they can be categorized in 6 dimensions. Some of them are related to the people, some of them related to the goals of the firm, some of them related to the process and procedure, some of them is related to the culture, some of them are related to technology. And one thing that we all know, that's one thing that we face, that we design in our office, but the construction process taking place on the site. What I want to talk about is that, for example, if we when in the interviews, when the people raise different in different roles, different things, different factors, as we know that BIM is integrated of the people, process, and technology, not just because of the technology, but mostly we focus on the technical parts, technical barriers, which most of the time the barriers rooted in a social or individual or cultural dimension. For example, we know that many of people raise the lack of training and resistant to change, lack of the BIM capability and skills. But one interesting thing that I found, that most of the time the architects have no motivation to take a BIM, because they are happy with the 2D or 3D. And the thing is that one important thing here is that most of the benefit that we talk about, the BIM benefits, is related to the maintenance and maintenance phase of the life cycle of the build asset. But the thing is that architect and subcontracted are not dealing with this phase. Then they usually don't see the point to burden the cost of BIM implementation without taking advantage of the using BIM, because if for example this is especially when is not a public project and they do for the clients, they are not dealing with the maintenance phase, then there is no motivation for them to work with. And the other thing is that most of the employees don't really get it how this using BIM benefits them in their day-to-day job. Lack of management support, one of the things that's raised as the barriers to uptake BIM, and is related to the manager perspective to BIM implementation as well. If, for example, the manager has a technology-centering mindset rather than human mindset, is not very successful to employ BIM in their firm. And it's true in leadership as well, that some of the leadership of the firm are not really feel the urgency of the change. They have this BIM implementation in their mind, but they don't think that it's very necessary to have it now, and they have time. That's the thing, is that it's hamper the BIM implementation in their firms. There is a sense to change. That's something that I think is we need to more think about it, because it's very personal for the people. Some people are not very open to make a change, and especially, for example, many of architects, when they are working with AutoCAD, they are very convenient. It's very convenient for them, and then change it to the Revit is not something that they really easy to do, or they want to do it. And sometimes they fear to lose job, or for the manager, they lose their power. Then they stick to the 2D and AutoCAD. Regarding the goal, is because most of the small, especially for the small firms or SMEs, they set their goal to focus on maximizing profits and focus on reducing costs. Then using employing the BIM is not in line with these goals, because it costs. And the thing is that it takes time until they can get the benefit from the using BIM. The initial cost is high. For the process and procedure, we found many interesting things in common with the construction firms, that they successfully use BIM and then use it as a business as usual. One thing is that they have a very straightforward and clear digital strategy implementation path, or digital strategy plan, that many of the companies don't have this, and it's very important. It's very crucial, play a very crucial role in this journey, because the thing is that it should be set out the goal. It should be that each company need to be aware of what's the status of the maturity of digital maturity, what they want to get, how they want to get it, and then articulate it in a very simple way. They can share with all the employees, and they can repeat it over years, and they shouldn't change it for at least 2-3 years. The thing is that in process and procedure is coordination issues that I'll talk later for the inter-organization, because the coordination issues inside the architectural firms is one of the barrier. But the thing is that because they are working with the subcontractor and contractor and other designers, this coordination challenges is more serious. Lack of communication and collaboration, that maybe we heard a lot about the process and procedure, because it's related to the sharing the information, who and to what extent the companies wants to share the information with others, and at the same time how they want to collaborate inside the organization. Regarding the culture, as we know that because the industry is very risk aversion, and the technology centric mindset as well, it play a crucial role, because most of the people look at this using BIM as a one technology, rather than this is human centric vision, that the people involved and they have to be on board, they have to believe in that this change, and they like to use BIM, and know about the benefits. A lack of collaboration is still in the whole industry, and lack of organizational resource and support, that especially most is many of the a small or a micro level architectural firm, they don't have enough resources and support from the organizational level, their leaders, the managers, to support their team, to take the course, to or to encourage them to use BIM, and any related skills that they need. There are some problems regarding the technology as well, that some of the designers and architects in a firm, they said that the complexity of the Revit or the BIM is the barrier. But the thing is that after working with it and then know it better, it eliminates. But at first, because it's very complex, it's kind of is hinder architects to try it. The thing is that it's time consuming, and then it's very difficult to find time in a day-to-day job of the employees to find the time to train, or to use BIM. The interoperability and the compatibility that we already mentioned. But what I want to talk about it, because what this came to this raised in the interviews, that challenges that contractors face when working with the architecture firms. Because BIM adoption journey for the architectural firms contains 3 levels: the organization of member at the micro level, organizational team at the meso level, and then the project in macro level. In macro level, because they working with the delivery network member, the contractors and subcontractors, it's need to coordinate and collaborate with them. As you can see in this figure, in micro level is just the architects team, but when level they working with the other architects, the designers, or a structural team. And for delivering the project, their architects work with the contractors, subcontractors, and the complexity is rising and getting higher when it goes from the micro level to the micro level. But then when general contractors wanted to work with architects team, they have different, they face a different problem. One is the digital skills and construction skills, because they raise this issue that when they receive this architectural design, plan, there is no problem with the model, or no problem with the Revit or the 3D model. But the problem is that there is no understanding of the building, how it works, and the structural engineering inside it, coordinating issue, and then the interoperability as well. But I choose this one because what's happened for them when I talked to the head of the technology, because they all these years, he said that especially in the last 4 days, 5 days after the BIM rising to BIM implementation in the project, they encounter lots of problem with designers and architects and consultancy firms that they work with, then they started to think about having the design team in-house and then design office, and then they established their design office in January 2020. The New Living is part of the Swan Group that they use predominantly AutoCAD software, not Revit, and they use only BIM when the client wants, or if there's it's very customer driven and project linked, and if the project is big or is a public project, or if the customer wants it, but otherwise they don't use Revit, but they have this in their mind to use BIM for most of the projects. But it was interesting for me what they decide. Some of these contractors decided to have the in-house team rather than working with architecture firms. One of the things is that they for example, for the 2-3 recent project that they said that the problem is that the construction joints. For example, when they received the model that in Revit from the architecture firm, when they go to offsite, when to go to the site, it doesn't work. It didn't work. That it caused lots of problem for them. They have to pay again. They have to send the person to look, and then back to the firm, and then tell them, please correct this. But as he criticized these architecture firms, that they don't take the responsibility for the making it right, and then they ask for extra money, and it caused delay in projects. And they what it says that because there is another related knowledge is required alongside with the BIM knowledge and capabilities, which is includes the properties of building material, structural design, environmental performance, and cost and programming. Therefore, change management knowledge should be in place when the bottom-up approach is more appropriate to deal with this, change and transformation. It's the thing is that there is often disconnection between two set of skills, and it happened in many projects. The coordination issue that's between this architect and developers is that, and establishing quality control procedure as well. I bring this quote as well. He said that we turn up to the site to fit the rainwater pipe or drain pipe, but there is no hole for it because it hasn't been picked on the model. That's cost time to appoint someone to cope with it. There are what's the Swan raised, that there are many coordination issues regarding this problem, and he said that the head of technology said that although this BIM or this model should detect the clash in their experience, and he claimed that many of these contractor or developer experienced the same, that when they received the model, there are still many clashes there that haven't detected, and then it's caused lots of problem when they go to the site. Yeah, that's it. Is sorry that I tried to make it brief.
No, that's pretty good. And I think because you did some more surveys with other consultants or contractors as well, and I guess it'll be interesting to see whether there's some sort of similarities in terms of the problems of the design team integrating with the delivery arm. But it's interesting, some of the things that I know that you raised there about the barriers for, I think it was mainly sort of centered around architects, but I think it's fair to say that, got to let her back in. Dropped out for a second there. I was just saying that the barriers that you had identified for architects, looking at those kind of lists, I think it's probably fair to say that they're barriers for lots of different organizations,
Yes.
not just architects or designers, and a lot of them apply to clients as well as contractors, etc. And I think if you wouldn't mind, it'd be good to share both those presentations with the other design groups, if it's okay. So if you wouldn't mind sort of sending, I don't know, the PDFs of them or something like that, then I can share that if that's okay.
Yeah. I told you that because it's not just for architects. I found it for the contractors, subcontractors, and it's more. It includes more factors. But I just deleted some of them that I thought that is not related to the. For example, working with the supply chain is not very related to this group. But I can share the whole diagram that can be used for others as well.
Well, I think even the one that you had was pretty clear actually, because they seem to be the key ones that are affecting everyone. But yeah, I guess anyone else got any questions? I guess for Quadno or Rayhani. I mean, I've said probably too much already.
Yeah, Richard's got his hand up.
Yeah, just very quickly, actually, I think Quadro's presentation would be very interesting for the MMC group.
Sorry, the line was breaking up. Can you tell that?
I was saying, sorry.
Go, Richard.
Oh, sorry. I was, excuse me, sorry. I was saying, Quadro, that I think your presentation would be very interesting to MMC group. They're going great guns at the moment, but you've obviously got a different perspective, which I think could be valuable to them.
I think.
Yeah. So just to explain that, Quadro.
Sorry.
Yeah. What we have, we've got the working groups, which is what you're in at the moment. Yeah. And the working groups are here to basically draw together people that have got particular interests in a sector or a stakeholder group. So, you know, design, development, construction, manufacturing, etc. What then we do is when we've then got a particular activity which is addressing some of the issues like MMC or fire safety, those cut across all of those different stakeholder groups. Yeah. And therefore what we've got are work streams which are made up from people from the working groups. So the MMC work stream has got a really active set of people, and what they're doing is driving forward with things that are being communicated to them through the working groups. So what happens is that the work streams then produce an output, which then gets fed back into the working groups. So then the working groups can then, peer group assess them and things like that. So we've got a number of different work streams, and one of them is MMC. And I agree with Richard. I think yours would be very good.
Thank you. I think I'll be happy to be put in touch with the MMC working group.
Thank you. That'd be, yeah, we'd be very well. Daz is actually on that group as well, so.
Yeah. So you'll get inundated with
meetings
and
bad
stuff.
move.
You don't know what you asked. You don't know what you got yourself into, but it's fine. No, and just to explain, George is sort of the masterminding all of these at the moment. So the idea of having the 6 in there, George. We've got the advisory working group, the manufacturing working group, the sort of client developer working group, the design one. So we're trying to make sure that if there are any challenges to implementing ultimately sort of better information, and really this is feeding back from the idea of how do we improve information flow to avoid things like the Grenfell fire, for example. So the bigger picture is about how can we sort of streamline the industry with things like naming protocols or classification, for example, or looking at completely changing the procurement system or the manufacturing setup, a bit like how looking at other industries, the aerospace and car have been very much sort of like the ideals from 30, 40 years ago, but it's a completely different beast, I guess, construction.
Yeah, the fire safety group, for example, sorry, Daz, but the fire safety group, they have coming up a workshop that's going to run for about 2.5 to 3 hours, where they're going to take a passive and an active fire safety product, and they're going to run it through all of the different REBA work stages and get input from the different members of the working groups who are part of the work stream to actually identify why wouldn't we be recording, for example, where fire stopping is being put in, yeah, and what are the barriers to that, and what do manufacturers need to do, for example, to make it easy for designers and installers or people that are operating the building to use the information properly.
And Rayhani, of course, will be heavily involved in that.
Yeah, Rayhani's going to help us on that with the case study, I think.
Yeah, she's going to actually within the group as well, solidifying the results.
Yeah.
And so I guess any other questions, I guess, from anyone for our presentees today, or the case studies, or anything that we could ask?
Not a question per se, but Rayhani, it was like a presentation on the last kind of 8 years of my job for that. So you brought all sorts of kind of memories coming back, and I was looking back through some of my old presentations that I've done in house. All very, very familiar, everything in your presentation. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I guess the two questions, I guess, I don't know if you had to take, say, one thing that you learned from, Alexa, I'm quite interested in the comparison that you did with the aerospace. What do you think would be the most beneficial? Because looking at the company that you looked at, the in-house capability for everything, and a bit like the New Living and Swan, where everything from design to procurement to manufacturing is under one umbrella. There's clearly one route to making sure everything is coordinated and seamless. But obviously large parts of the, I guess most of the industry isn't like that, isn't delivering things like that. So should we be, or is there another way that we could kind of work with what's currently here, or do we need a massive change, you think, in an ideal world?
Thanks, Des. So you're right about the capabilities of net zero. From what the research is showing, it seems that, well, a key takeaway from what I learned through the case study is that the practice of going forward, the practice of architecture as a profession should not necessarily be limited to the discipline-specific task for project delivery or organizational functions alone, but then the training towards being an architect should broaden a bit more towards having managerial capabilities to be able to deal with the innovation superstructure and then innovation infrastructure. That's to be able to, I'm sure at the moment, a lot of the work or a lot of the training focuses on dealing with client needs, ensuring you're working within regulatory and contextual limitations or requirements, and also adhering to professional practice. But the moving towards a more manufacturing-led way of construction project delivery would require the acquisition of the additional capabilities to be able to build that supplier network. And more often than not, I think it's more often than not, architects tend to lead project teams. I think it's the natural default of the industry, depending on the project. And also there are studies to that effect that show that more often than not, architects or engineers tend to be the lead persons in every project team, depending on whether it's a more engineering-based project or not. And so going forward, more attention could be given to the development of the architect as a professional towards acquisition of more managerial capabilities. And to your question, I think that it's going to be increasingly necessary for firms to have the capabilities to deal with these requirements of using offsite manufacturing and digital technologies in-house, mainly because it is going on a journey. And at the moment, the requirements for successful project delivery and the industry capability to do so there is a gap between these two. And so most firms, from the data we've gathered, would prefer doing everything on their own than to look for different parties who are difficult to find already to do different pockets of work for them. And so it's becoming, so in one of the interviews, I asked a consulting architect that, so going forward, so two different people and the same question, a consulting architect and then a project manager, that going forward, how do they see their consulting firm operating? Are they going towards developing capabilities to deliver everything in-house, or they're just going to stick to their specialist firms? And then the consulting architect was of the opinion that it could lead to the evolution of the industry towards more digital manufacturing-led practices could lead to two things: more integration, or the development of in-house capabilities on one hand, and increased specialization, such that everyone becomes more and more specialized in what they are doing, so that they will then fit into a specific slot, which then suggests higher competition, because if more and more firms get into a specific zone, then they are going to have more competition in that area. And then similarly, on the side of developing in-house capabilities, it comes with having the resources to do that, and also being able to manage the potential financial risks that would come with it, especially given that construction tends to go with the economy. If it's good, then it's good. If it's not so great, then it's not so great. So
could I just ask? Sorry, the what you're saying there in terms of the architect taking more in-house, as it were. Are you saying more of the specialist architectural elements, or are you saying that they would bring in-house things like M&E design?
More of the latter, George. Yes.
Well, that's very interesting, because that's certainly the way people like BDP used to be, and a lot of the big practices did have that capability. And as you'll say, they moved away from it, and part of that was because the level of, I think probably, in fact, clients didn't like appointing an architectural firm and an M&E firm that were doing the same thing. So, you know, sorry, my phone just went as it, but yeah, they didn't want that. They wanted the, I don't know, Joe, have you had experience of that as well? Because I had asked, did you have both? I can't remember.
We didn't know, but I was just thinking exactly the same thing. So BDP came to mind, and I've kind of often thought that the likes of BDP should have a competitive advantage because of all this, what we're talking about. But what I know from inside those companies is they kind of experience different cultures between architects and engineers, because we're very different kind of types of people. So I've seen a few companies like that, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, I have seen another shift where you have contractors who become manufacturers themselves, and I've worked on projects like that, and they're the best running projects that I've ever experienced, because there's a vested interest in the end product at a design stage, and I think that's kind of how it's going to go, because so maybe consultants will get pushed out of the market, or will become part of the kind of single contractor deliverer for projects.
And I think, Joe, that brings me to the response from the project manager in the general contracting firm. So I asked them, so where do you see the future of a company like yours? And they said, well, we would have to consider playing more the role of an integrator rather than a traditional contractor. So where now you mentioned that some contractors do have manufacturing firms, and that indeed was what the project manager was alluding to.
Yeah. Can I add, regarding the one, what I raised Son as an example, that they bring in-house the design team, is one thing that is interesting is that is not having the design team or architecture team inside the house or in-house is not something that all the contractor can do. For example, Kier, although is a very big contractor and is one of the leading, they still they don't have the design team inside. They work with the consultants firm or architectural firms. I think this is only can be is only can be done for the very, very big or like a very is like in a very big contractors, not for the middle range or the small one. Then if it happens that they have their own in-house team, is not something that most of the or the majority of contractors can afford.
And it also kind of increases the risk on their side, because that's one of the benefits, obviously, of having a consultant team is that the risk is spread across that team.
Exactly.
Well, I think I'm also conscious of time in terms of the hour, but what will be, I'm wondering, quite well, the interesting to understand what is the process to procuring, designing, and building a plane in difference to a house, and is there something that we can learn across the industry in that? I don't really know the kind of route. Is there a fundamental difference? Is there this sort of integrator that you mentioned, the kind of key role that's different? Obviously, there's engineers, there's structural engineers, there's all the different disciplines that you might need for building a big building. You'd expect there would be the same for aerospace. Is there something different in that kind of workflow? That'd be quite interesting to know if you have that, if you've done that, and maybe you could share that later at a later date, for example. And I think in terms of the in-house thing, I guess one of the problems is that when we work with practices who have got supposedly in-house, like Arup or Ramble are multidisciplinary consultancies, they're actually operating as different businesses. So they're not really in-house. And if you're, for one architectural job, you would need a structural engineer or an M&E engineer to be doing 5 or 6 other jobs at the same time, just because of the fee levels. So there's a kind of a financial difference. It's not that there's financial sort of mechanisms and structures or fees are different, and therefore, if we were to, as a DMA, to have a structural engineer, they would need to be working on other projects that are not just the ones that we're working on to be viable potentially. So I guess that those are kind of but then the IPI kind of set structure that George, I think, has mentioned and looked at is where then the risk is shared. So then that maybe takes out an element of co-working with individual consultancies or specialists without having to go in-house route. I think it's that risk and the aversions of risk that are maybe either bringing people in-house or keeping everyone separate from what I can understand.
I think that's a more practical way of addressing it. And what I would say is exactly as Daz was saying there, that the companies that I know, and I used to work very closely with HBG, now BAM, and they have in-house design team, and most of the construction teams prefer to work with third-party designers. And that's not because of the performance of the in-house team. It's because they can, from a procurement perspective, they feel that they can get better leverage with external people, and so I think that's a cultural thing. And I remember years ago where mechanical services contractors had their own in-house ductwork contractors, and that was an extremely unhealthy relationship. Because again, they were treating them as they expected to get a better price from their in-house team, and there was all sorts of tensions that came about there. But the IPI model that Daz mentioned, which is basically having a virtual team, and the virtual team is made up from people from the different organisations, all of whom have got clear roles, but they are working as an integrated team to deliver an integrated project. And they don't have any PI cover individually. Everybody is under the same banner. And I think that's probably, certainly from a cultural perspective, I think has got legs.
No, thank you.
There's very few projects done doing that way. There's only 2.
Yeah, someone's got to lead the path, I guess, George, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so, well, look, if there's no other questions or comments, then just say, well, look, thanks again. And that's really interesting. And I'll try and issue some kind of maybe some queries and stuff, but and some notes. But and then if you share the presentations with myself, Richard will very kindly put it up.
Because I make the tea and the coffee.
Yeah, exactly. On my behalf. Since no one has to make tea or coffee, Richard does the uploading.
I'm idle.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe I'll post some of the general queries to yourselves.
And Cradwell, if you don't mind, I'll email you after this and hook you up with the MMC group.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Richard.
Excellent. It'd be good to have you involved.
Thank you. All
right. Thank you very much, everyone. And see you in a couple of weeks, I guess. And
right.
Bill, sorry, thanks for the benefits and things. If anyone else got any free benefits and challenges for designers in either using BIM or guess BIM in the sense of better information management or building information modeling, that would be really good. So answers on a short email, please. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye. Cheers.